Okay, so I want to do some more file processing, opening a file, and then using different scanners to, or using a scanner to process the data in the file. So a little bit of syntax, a little bit of logic. Um, open the text file numbers.txt. First thing we're going to do is continue to read the data and add each to a balance. So printing the final balance at the end. And after we do that, we'll track the number of positive entries or deposits and the number of negative entries or withdrawals. So maybe just modify that same code to do that. All right, so we'll jump over to Eclipse. In chapter 6, at the same level as our source code are our text files that we're dealing with. HarryPotter.txt, mathclasses.txt, math faculty, and numbers. So right now we're going to look at the numbers.txt. Do a new Java class. We'll call it process numbers. Headers in here. Program will open a file. Numbers.txt. And calculate the balance. Adding all the numbers. Say all the entries, as well as determine that and find the number of deposits and withdrawals. Okay, so we need import java.io, everything to open the files. Import java.utilities for the scanner. Come down here. I think I'll do a new file first. File input, let's call it input file. New file. Numbers.txt. And you'll notice that we did not throw our exception. Right in here. Throws file not found exception. Make my coding area a little bigger. Okay. And it helps, might help just to look at the data as well. So maybe I'll just open this in Eclipse here. I notice that's in the wrong. I have that in chapter 4, so I need to close that and move it down into chapter 6. Basically, I would have gotten an error because it would not be able to. Let's try it. Let's run it right now. See the error. I run this. No error. Okay, it didn't give me an error, but I don't think I'm going to be able to read from that file. Let's not move it and see what happens. Let's open numbers.txt so we can see what that looks like. So we've got some numbers in here. We're basically going to read a number and add it to the balance. So, you know, in our pseudocode, if it's not that involved, but, you know, what's happening in main over here, we need to first open the file, you know, and that's involved with all the syntax that's associated with that. So get a scanner, etc. And then, you know, while there's more data, read the data, and update the balance. That's my loop. I'll need a variable for balance up here somewhere. Starts off at 0. And then while there's more data, read the data, update the balance. So it's pretty straightforward code. Let's go ahead and set up our scanner. Let's call it input equals new scanner. And I can just put input file here. That scanner will be reading from the input file. And we'll set up our balance. Double or integer? I gotta go check. Double. Initialize that. Okay, so the loop, how do we know there's more data? We say while input.has next, and so they're all either integers or doubles, so we can read them as doubles. Has next double. While it has next double, we could read it in and then add it to the balance, or we can just add it to the balance at once. So we can say balance equals balance plus input dot next double. Another way to do this, let's run it, and let's get out of that loop and print the balance. Probably should print it as a printf statement because it's a dollar amount, and so we don't want like 64.2, we want 64.20. The ending balance, I didn't tell you it was a dollar amount, but it is. Ending balance is, let's put a dollar sign followed by the formatting percent, fixed decimal, percent 0.2f. So 2 decimal places on a fixed decimal, and then we'll put a period after it. And the argument here will be balance. So a little bit of print formatting syntax. I expect it to crash, but I could be wrong. Yeah, crashing. Why is it crashing? You know, main file not found exception numbers.txt. The system cannot find the file specified. So this is not an uncommon error. Whenever the file is not in at the same level as the source code of that thing, it's going to be problematic. So I could fix this 2 ways. I could, well, I'm sure there's more than 2 ways I could fix it. One way would be to copy this file back into chapter 4, but I'm in the wrong chapter anyway. So I'm going to close this so it saves the changes I made, and then I'm going to drag it down, process numbers, down into the chapter 6 source code folder. There we go. And you know, one thing about errors, you know, they will try to tell you what's going on. Sometimes it's hard to tell what's causing the error. Also, Eclipse has this, you know, suggested autocorrect for a lot of text, a lot of syntax errors, and those I'd be very careful of because it doesn't know what your logic is. So it being Eclipse. So if it's telling you, oh, you should do this or try this, those are kind of maybe not the best things to just do. You should figure out why it's telling you to do that, or see if you can fix the error on your own. But something like this, where it's telling us, this is the compiler telling us, okay, that's the error. I can't find the file. We can fix that. Okay. Versus like, obviously, if let's say I lose that guy. Nothing happened. That's all right. I was going to show you a syntax error and just show you how to fix it, or show you what, let's say it's called process number here. You know this from the calculator assignment. Then the error message says process number must be defined. So sometimes it gives you an option to go ahead and define it. Or if we looked at like balance here, let's say get rid of this double. Or let's see, I say balances here or something, right? Then the error is going to say, balances cannot be resolved. So sometimes it'll give you an option to like create a new balance, and balances when you didn't really want to create a new variable, you just wanted it, you had a typo. Anyways, I digress. Run this guy, see if it works. It does work this time, and the balance is negative 5260. Great. I mean, that's not good. We're overdrawn. Perfect. So that's the first part. And the idea there, I'm just trying to show us how to loop through the values in the data file, and how to the syntax of just reading the file and then looping through that data file. Okay, and then the second part of this problem says, well, I should be able to see it from my comments above if I did them right. One of the advantages, you can just go back up here and say, okay, find the number of deposits and the number of withdrawals. So let's go back to our pseudocode for a second. Here we're going to read the data and update the balance. And as we do that, we want to count, determine if it's positive or negative, count the positive values, and we want to count the negative values, so the deposits and the withdrawals. So, those are numbers, and they're going to need to be declared and sort of initialized up here. And just do that on the same line. Balance equals 0. Actually, they're integers because we're counting things. So it's going to be integer deposits. Zero. And withdrawals equals 0. And then if I look at this loop, adding, so when we use the scanner, once we read it in, if I do this, I can no longer tell what this was if I add it to balance like this. So I can't check if that's positive or negative by doing it in this format. What I need is I need to read it into a number first. Like if I just say, if input.next double is positive here, that's going to look at the next number. And if I said not look at it, it's going to read it in actually. And if I said if input.next double is negative, do something, that's going to look at the next number. So if you put, if you use this input.next double is not a variable. It is a method that's taking the next number in the file out and saving it there. So if I try to use input.next double again, instead of dealing with the number I started with, it'll take the next number out. And then that number will no longer be able to be accessed. So then when we go to compute the balance, we would lose our balance. So for example, if I just put a statement here that says if input.next double, well, actually going to run into trouble because at the end of the statement, if this is, let's say, greater than 0, I'm going to actually get an error here because let's go deposit plus plus. I think I'm going to get an error here because when it gets to the end of the last value is going to be read in here, and then this is going to read one more value in. So there won't be another value to read. So let's see what happens when I run it. Oh, it didn't happen like I suspected, but that's because it was even. So if we had one more number in there, we would have gotten an error. This was reading the second to last number, and then this was the reading the last number, and then there were no more numbers. So that we had a 50-50 chance of getting an error there. But notice our balance changed. And that's because we didn't read all the values and we skipped every other one, basically. So delete that. I didn't, I could look at, okay, suppose we think that's working. I could print the deposits here, or I could do another one. If input dot, no, because I could just use an or statement here. Let's not do that. Okay, I think you get the idea of why it wouldn't work. So what do we have to do instead? We need a new variable or temporary double. Temp, let's call it temp data, or temporary value equals input dot next double. I need to, of course, make it a double. We'll just call it temp. It doesn't need to be temp value. Double temp equals input dot next double. Then when we go to add it to the balance, it will just be balance plus temp, or I could have done this before, plus equals temp. That means balance equals balance plus temp. Maybe in between here, before we add it to the balance, we're going to say if temp, let's say if we have a 0 value, we can call that a deposit. So if temp is greater than or equal to 0, that's going to be what we'll call a positive value or a deposit. Then we'll take our deposits and increase them by 1. So that, again, that notation means deposit equals deposit plus 1. And let's change it from deposits, plural, to singular, deposit. If temp is greater than or equal to 0, deposit equals deposit plus 1. And deposit. I think the S makes more sense. Deposits, withdrawals. Sorry. Now, if it's not a deposit, it's not greater than or equal to 0. That means it must be less than or equal to 0. So then we can say else. I don't need an if statement here because it's not an else if. It's just the only other option is that it be negative. So if it's not positive, it must not be a deposit. It must be a withdrawal. And again, that plus plus means withdrawal equals withdrawal plus 1. Maybe here I have a method called output results. Do I need a method here? I don't know. Maybe the whole thing should be redone with methods. I'm kind of being lazy here, so let's go ahead and put the print line statements in. Again, let's use printf, and I go back to this print formatting, I'm going to want a \n here. Print format, not so much because of the decimals, but just to make our typing easier. There were %d deposits and %d withdrawals. I need a comma and deposits, comma, withdrawals. No parenthesis there. Okay. And we should get back to our negative balance again. Nope. Wow, the balance is different again. What happened? 9 deposits, 5 withdrawals. Huh. Weird. So that's weird that we're getting a different number now. Let's look at the numbers again. 9 withdrawals and 9 deposits, 5 withdrawals. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 deposits. That's right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 withdrawals. I swear it wasn't it negative the first time? Well, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to assume this is the right balance. No, this is not the right balance. This is the last value, 970. So let's go back in here. It's plus equals temp. Let's print the balance here just temporarily. It might have been somewhere in here where I changed variable names or something. Double, let's see what happens. Yeah, so the balance is actually just becoming the next temporary value. Oh, I see what I did. I put the plus on the wrong side. I'm not a big fan of this syntax, but it is shorthand for people. It's very easy to make mistakes there, right? Because it's balance equals, if you write it out, balance, it doesn't take very long. Balance plus temp. Okay, and the logic is clear. You can see it there. The logic is clear the other way as well. Let's run this real quickly and see what happens. So now my balance is negative 5260 again. The other syntax is fine. It's shorthand, right? And when we shorten things, sometimes if you, like I had the plus on the wrong side, so it wasn't a syntax error because it's just saying the positive value there. Even if it's a negative value, anyway. So either way works. Of course, you need the right syntax. Now notice that was a logic error because I never had adjusted the syntax in there at all. I think I'll come back and we'll get rid of that statement. So notice I put a print in there to sort of track what was going on. It's a very common way to sort of see how your error is happening. You know, Eclipse has a way to sort of track stuff through, but you learn more by just doing and figuring out on your own. Okay, I'm gonna stop this video. I think I'll come back and just modularize it by putting it into methods in the next video.